say this all the time.
There are so many updates and tons of community work happening. It's hard to keep up. How do I follow it all?
Here is your answer. Listen to the Gutenberg Changelog. Hello and welcome to our 15th episode of Gutenberg Changelog. In today's episode, we will talk about the plugin releases 7.5 and 7.6 and what will be in WordPress 5.4. We will also talk about global styles and using the block editor outside the editor screen. I am Birgit Paulihardt, curator of Gutenberg Times, and I'm here with my co-host, Mark Urain, designer at Automatic and core contributor to WordPress. Hi, Mark. How are you today?
Hey, Birgit. I'm doing well. Back from a few illnesses and traveling and all that good stuff. So we're home now. It's great to collaborate with you again on another episode today. I heard you were at WordCamp Miami. How'd that go?
Well, your life sounds almost like mine. I traveled for a bit, I was sick a bit, and I just returned, as I said, from WordCamp Miami. Kudos to the organizers, sponsors, volunteers, and speakers for an awesome 3 days WordPress weekend. On the Gutenberg Times, you'll find the slide decks of the 4 talks about the block editor with Victor Ramirez, Michelle Schulp, Jean Felizme, and yours truly. I had some great discussions about the block editor after my talk and how it makes the life of content creators so much easier. And I think I also turned around a few skeptics after my enthusiasm in the talk.
All right. Now we just need them to go out there and tweet about it and share their experience. If it's been an improvement for them, we'd love to hear that.
Yeah. So, and for today's podcast, we have a big list. Let's get started. Tomorrow, WordPress 5.4 release candidate 1 is scheduled. And if you want to help testing, there's also a new version of the WordPress beta tester plugin available. So now you can download the beta and release candidate versions directly into your WordPress staging and testing site. I would not advise to do this on your live site. These are not yet finished products. So you might there might be some quirks if you put it live. But if you help testing, the more people test those beta and release candidate version, the better is the end product. So we all need as many people as possible to test things.
Right. And I know we're saying tomorrow today, but by the time the episode gets out,
it was this week.
Yes.
You're right. You're right. So on March 3rd,
there we go.
The release candidate 1 is scheduled to come out.
Excellent. Please, everybody, try to test that out, and it just ensures a better product in the end. So thank you for everybody who does spend time doing that. And today we have a community contribution I wanted to talk about, Birgit. For those of you who know Simplice, a portfolio platform which is built on WordPress, co-founded by Tobias Van Schneider, they've introduced some blocks recently. And what they call blocks tend to be more along the lines of block patterns. But nevertheless, they're designing some really beautiful sections that are very inspiring. You can see those in the link in the show notes, or link to them from the show notes. But I love to see when really great quality designers are out there building things on WordPress, to see how far they're kind of pushing this tool, what they're doing with it, and where they're going. It's always inspiring to see this stuff that people do.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I didn't know about Simplice, so I definitely will go and check it out. And hopefully we come up with some great inspiration there. Speaking about inspiration, the block editor or the Gutenberg development team has published quite a few release notes for the changes to the block editor in WordPress 5.4. So this follows along the core practice to have additional make blog posts.
Yeah.
And for the blog editor, there will actually, there have been published 9 of those.
Wow.
And I just kind of point them out briefly. So one is the new and updated blocks in WordPress 5.4, and we talked about that. It's a refactored social links block with some breaking change from the plugin implementation, so be aware. Then the buttons block comes in new, as well as the TikTok embed. Yay! And I know we talked about that already, but I just mentioned it again because it's so exciting for the youngins. And also the featured image for the latest post block widget block is now also, it will come to core. Another the second release note that was published is about the block variations API, with code examples and documentation, how you can have different variations of a block that then show up in the inserter for editors to use, instead of having to configure each variation over and over again. That's a wonderful enhancement for faster editing.
Yeah, that one's always, what do you think about that, Birgit? Just to sidestep our conversation here a little bit, because these block variations, they are variations of a particular block that a plugin author can introduce. And yet we have block style variations as well, which are also in the block itself, that you can change the style variation of a block. So I guess a block variation that might be surfaced in the inserter would be more than really a styling change, is my understanding. Does that sound right? Because if you want just a styling change of your particular block, well, then we have style variations.
Right, and the style variations, you can actually pick a default variation of that, saying, okay, my images are always round, and make that the default styles. So if you have a standard on how things are going to be published, and sometimes you have a heading, and that's the example that the developer used. If you have a sometimes a heading red and a heading green, every time you use the heading, you need to make the trip to the sidebar and change the color of it, because it's not a default one. So now you can surface that heading red and heading green in the inserter, and it's just a one-step configuration. And so you can do quite a bit more. I think it's in between the reusable blocks and a template or a pattern. It's kind of a smaller variation of that. Reusable blocks, we know when you change them, if you use them and then change them, it changes throughout the site when the reusable block is used, but you cannot use them as a pattern to say, okay, I want just this part of the block reusable, but the rest should be editable. And maybe sooner or later we're going to get to that.
Right.
Yeah, so the block variations might be a good replacement for thinking, have smaller changes to the API, to the block, and reuse them over and over again.
You know what, Birgit? I'm sure that people are going to find great use with those block variations, and probably come up with some beautiful ways to actually offer variances for their blocks. And so I'm excited to see where that goes. I'm still curious to see where are the styling variations going to be? Is that going to mean that styling variations start going away? Because if I'm surfacing a green heading and a red head, well, those are styling variations. So maybe I don't need a styling
right, but if you think about if you do heading or red heading / red heading and then start typing, you don't have to configure it.
That's true. That's true. So it does raise it up one level.
Yeah.
Style variations will be diminishing though.
Well, you could also kind of go a little bit further. If you say, okay, I have a list block with everything in blue and then a list block with everything in green. Making those changes is even harder to do. Or I have a cover block that has these images in there, and I'm not sure how far that I didn't look at the API directly, but I think there are some changes possible, some examples. We've definitely that's something new, and I'm really curious what other people do with that. So the third release note was miscellaneous developer-focused changes, but it only mentions the new block-related or block editor-related was only two things. One is the new embeds for TikTok and how to do this via code, not only for the block editor, but also for the classic editor. And the core team also removed the College Humor embeds because College Humor site was discontinued. The fourth one is an updated button component, information about that. So instead of having a button component, now it's a buttons group and then smaller buttons in there. And that can then, I think that came out of the navigation block development where the team found it necessary to update the button component. And then the fifth one is about the keyboard shortcuts that are coming that they are already in the block editor, but now the team has also implemented an API to register new shortcuts and also remove shortcuts for site developers. So if you don't use all those shortcuts, you can remove them and then add additional ones to make the editing even faster. The sixth release note is about the create block package for block scaffolding, which gives you scaffolding for all the files that you need, including ESNext JavaScript packages, to create a single block plugin that is ready for the soon to be available block directory. We talked about a block directory before, but this package is really cool. It came inspired from WP CLI, but then added the JavaScript build steps and that, including namespacing and the README, the plugin PHP, and the header information for the plugin, everything that you need there. It's quite nice to start out. The seventh release note has some general block editor API updates for the short, and it mentions 5 of them. One is the shortcode transformation. So you could, if a plugin developer had a shortcode that was used within the block editor and now found the time to create custom blocks for those, the developer can also then assign transformations to certain shortcodes. So they will automatically be changed into blocks. Not automatically, but so the content creator can then transform them into native blocks. There's also an async mode provider that will speeds up the page reload and only reloads the block somebody's working on, and the others are only reloaded when the page is saved. So that kind of speeds up the whole thing. Custom media upload handler. Not so quite sure what that would entail, but it could be that you could use a shorter process for media uploads in your block editor. I don't know, Mark.
That's a good question. I'm trying to think it through myself. I'm not entirely sure.
Another API is an easier drag and drop component, and a new guide component for it's the modal that is now appearing for first-time block users. But any block developer can tap into that component and make it available for their own blocks.
I like that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That was an early on thought, I think, by Noisy Socks, Robert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
really make that into a component so that others can use it as well.
Yeah, and it's definitely helpful for content creators when they see something new, that they get a little bit more information about it before they head first into the adventure. And then there are 3 theme-related changes in the release notes. One is markup and style-related changes with simpler block margins, blocks and rich text components, loose redundant wrappers, remove some legacy editor class names, and all that. Then the last one that was published also this week is the new gradient theme API. Yay, we are all fans of gradients, backgrounds for the buttons on the cover block, and now you can also use them in your theme. And it also has a method to turn them off. Not everybody is a fan. I've heard.
Oh, no. Did you allow them to turn it off?
Yeah, to
that's
have add action turn off gradients is in there, and the code is
Ah,
in that.
if it was up to me, Birgit, we'd have gradients as the default option for everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I did some very nice candy designs, or tried them at least out for my talk, and and I then removed them and went back to black and white buttons.
Oh, they're fun to experiment with, but when
Yeah.
you go live, it's always like, ooh, do I really want that many colors?
Yeah, and does it really add to the value of that information? Is
It's
the
gradients. It always just makes people smile.
yeah, especially the candy ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those were the Gutenberg release notes, or the plug editor release notes for the field guide for WordPress 4.5 release.
It's so good to see that happening.
Yeah, and it's very helpful for everybody who needs to kind of stay up on top of things. The release is scheduled for March 31st, so we have with this week 3 release candidates, and if necessary, a 4th one. So every week is a new release candidate. So that's it.
With that, Birgit, we have Gutenberg 7.5 and 7.6, which are the 2 recent additional versions that have been released on the plugin, of which both those should be getting into 5.4. All right?
I think so. At least 7.5. I wasn't quite sure about 7.6. I read in Justin Tedlock's that it would go into 5.4, but it was after beta release, so there might be just the bug fixes and enhancements
I think you're right.
that made it into the next beta.
So let's see, containing 1 week of updates from 45 contributors. This was 7.5.
Yes.
Yeah, because 7.6 we couldn't really see. It wasn't listed in the post anyways, all the contributors. So the release cycle was temporarily shortened to align features with WordPress 5.4 beta 1.
Yeah.
And so we did a cycle of releases, one right after the other. And then we skipped a week, jumped back into it, and now we're back into the every other week release cycle for Gutenberg again.
We all hope.
Yes, very much hope so.
Yeah.
And with this, so we can talk about the features. Last episode, we talked about some of these already because we had some idea of what was coming for 7.5. But 7.5 included the social links block. Let's see, there was support for adding featured images to the latest posts block, which I love. Now I could actually start having images on my latest posts.
Yeah, I like that too. Now I don't have to install a plugin for that.
Right. You know what I tend to do too, Birgit, is like in CSS, I'll hide the feature image from my actual post because on one of my blogs, I'm not a big fan of that necessarily. But where I list my latest posts, I kind of want to show the featured image. And I could never really do it until now. So,
Right. And
without Jetpack.
Yeah, and I think that I'm torn between the having on the single block the featured image, but what I like is when I share a single blog post, we need to be careful. A single blog post, not blog post, to the social webs like Facebook or LinkedIn or even Twitter, then I would like to have the featured image also come with. Yes. So it kind of stands out a little bit, and it's not just the headline there. So I almost have that.
I have that as well, that desire. Same thing. Okay, so as we mentioned, the 7.5 included TikTok video embeds. We also included the inline text color support, so you can change the color of a single word within the paragraph block. Text color support for columns block. And then in 7.6, there was added rotating list of tips to the insert or help panel, which is really nice. We've been really working to integrate more tips and to really help inform people. There's a few things. In fact, I'm going to check this just real quick, this particular PR. that we have in the show notes.
While you do that, I wanted to say one word about the text color within a paragraph. There's also a feature to do this for the image caption section of an image block. I think it depends on the theme if that actually shines through as well as the inline text color. So those things need to be also kind of matched up on the theme. I have not yet investigated how that would work, but I found some of the themes are not displaying those inline text colors or text colors. Yeah, so that I found that interesting. So that it's a feature in there, but I think it has a little bit of a hiccup there.
So that I just glanced at that more tips in the inserter help panel. And yeah, these are basic tips that kind of help with the Gutenberg or with the block editor overall. I know that there's another PR, or is it an issue in GitHub? And I can't think of which one it was or what it was called or which number it was, but it was a recent edition about adding tips based on people's search criteria. So if someone searches for SEO or searches for maybe URL, right? And they're trying to figure out how to add a link that maybe on basic search keywords that people tend to do, we can provide a tip in there that says, hey, it looks like you're on the URL, it looks like you're trying to add a link. Just highlight the word and you'll see a link icon in the block toolbar. Something like this to kind of just better inform people. Yeah. Based on common searches that happen.
So one of my favorite secret, just to do a little side note here, my favorite secret feature on Gutenberg block is that if I have a URL, if I want to link to another page, be it on my own blog or away from a third-party one, and I have that link already in my clipboard, I just highlight and Control V on the text, and it automatically puts that link underneath the text that I just highlighted. I don't have to even go through the link component there.
Whoa.
That's really cool.
That's really cool. I haven't fiddled with it that far. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
No,
that's great.
Big love.
Speaking of links, like link insertion and the whole bit around that, Google recently, like I was fiddling around with their links in the Google Docs or some other thing. And if it's a web URL, it like actually the link interface kind of changes, and for you to click over if you want to visit that site or edit that link, and it's real interesting. Anyways.
Yeah, and it gives you a little, it actually gives you a little preview of that page. Yeah, so it's really cool. Yeah, so I would love that WordPress, but I'm not sure if I have a time to write the issue for that.
Oh no, you don't even have time to write an issue. Oh.
In 7.5 and 7.6, we have a few enhancements, and I really like the first one that's here listed is the angle picking interface for the custom gradient component.
That sounds complicated.
It sounds complicated, but if you have a gradient, you can decide if you want it going from top to bottom, or if you want to have 45-degree through the button and on that line diagonal kind of gradient. So if you play around with it, you can spend quite some time there.
You get that gradient just right.
Yeah. Well, if everything is kind of diagonal on your website, you want to have an offset of that diagonal. But
you know what? I want to know how much time is wasted on trying to get gradients just right before the person actually says, no, I don't want gradients, and then publishes without them. Like, how much time of their time is wasted trying to get gradients perfect before they decide not to actually publish with them?
Yeah, that would be me. So another enhancement is, and we already touched upon that, is to transform from button block to buttons block, where you can have multiple buttons in a row and nicely lined up. The navigation block, which will not come to 5.4, also received some enhancement with a new design for submenus, inheriting the color of the anchor elements and getting some width caret in there, or show the caret for the submenus.
Right.
improved color handling, and some background color CSS classes so themes can style those as well.
Which, by the way, I'm going to jump us back to the buttons block.
Oh,
Birgit,
sorry.
is that okay?
Yeah, cool. Sure.
Even though it's called the buttons with the plural block, you can have just one button in there.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be plural. You don't have to have two. You can have one button, a singular button inside the buttons block. But you know what? You know what's interesting is you cannot have a single column inside the columns block.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't that interesting? I found this out this weekend or this last week. I was trying to create some block patterns, but with one column, and I couldn't do it.
So you would use the group block for that.
Yeah, but there were some things I wanted to, there was a way in which I wanted to change this, I guess. And because the group block, you can set the group block to full width, right? But any blocks you add in there still respond only if they can, like if I added a paragraph block to a groups block, I couldn't make that paragraph block full width because paragraph blocks don't have that option.
But if you use the columns block.
Right. I can make one, I wanted to make one column full width, right?
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm thinking of this right, but there was something in like, I was trying to create a pattern and I realized this, that buttons block, you could have a button, but columns block, you cannot have one column.
I experimented with some of the third-party blocks for my talk, and I had a testimonial block from Cadence where you can add multiple testimonials in columns, but the block developer didn't add the wide width or the full width in it. So I put it into a group block and then did the full width, and it actually expanded.
It worked, really?
Yeah, that worked. Yeah, so it could be that the paragraph block that you were using had actually fixed width. That wouldn't work. But if it has a percentage width kind of thing, then it would work.
Blocks are still pretty complex little nuggets of adventure.
Yeah.
It's always fun trying to see what various design patterns and things you can create. That's anyway, go on. I'm so sorry.
No, I think it's important to kind of talk about these a little bit more.
Right?
As well.
We aren't the only ones having some of these discussions, right, Birgit? There are others out there?
There are others out there, but they're not on a podcast, so.
Okay.
So we were still in the enhancements of 7.5. There were also some accessibility enhancements that had to do with title attributes that needed to be removed, and then an additional setting for the edit state of a link control component, which was needed to be more accessible, and an announcement component for all notices that come from various blocks or plugins or so. Those are very important kind of enhancements.
There are a couple there for accessibility. That's good.
Yeah. And in 7.5 and were a few new APIs. We touched upon them already on the release notes. So we kind of jump a little bit. One of them I wanted to point out is the block variations API. That's we already talked about that as well. And the gradients theme API. We talked about all of those. So they are in 7.5 and in 7.6. Yeah, there were a few enhancements, but they're not so dramatic that they impact the blocks or the handling of blocks.
I agree. You and I, Birgit, we are very particular about which enhancements that we vocalize on our episodes here because. And I'm sorry, if they don't cut the cut, they're not going to get a mention from us.
Well, it's also something that we don't want this episode being a whole hour. I mean, the last one was about 40 minutes, or that was really long. So
right. We don't want to just sit here and read over every single change.
Right. So why don't you help us with the experimental parts of the 7.6?
Yes. So 7.5. had a few, which we've talked about before. 7.6 had some regarding the new blocks for full site editing. These included things like the post featured image block, comments count block, the comments form block, and the post tags block. These are like, we're getting into the minutia of blocks now. Maybe minutia is the wrong word to say, but they're very important blocks. But it's like blocks that you wouldn't imagine, like, oh yeah, we need to have, everything is a block now. We need to have all blocks for all this stuff. It's been quite an interesting discussion going through and trying to figure out how we build these blocks. What parts of these blocks do we allow users to really interact with? Are they blocks within blocks? Are they just settings within a block? Like, anyways, listeners, if you have an opinion, please jump in on that and give us some guidance.
Yeah, I guess it's more like for the theme developer to get the fields out of the database and onto the template. How would that an end user do that without a block when you're in the block editor? And that's certainly not possible. I think an additional load there to figure out that is repeated on every post that is then displayed. I think once they see it, it's like the normal, we don't know what we want until we see what we get kind of thing. So some exploration will be necessary for
you just made me think of a great question I'm going to post on, or I'm going to tweet on Twitter after our show. I need to find out. I want to find out from people who build templates. Do you just want to see placeholders of when you're building out a template, for like a template for your post or something? Or do you want to see like actual content within your template to get a better idea for how the layout is constructed? Anyways, if I don't get around it, Rich, or if you're listening, you always tweet good questions.
Yeah.
That's an important one. I want to find that out, because I explored down the route of not having a visual representation of the content and just making block placeholders for things just to lay out on a page. And it seemed pretty quickly that might not be the way to go, that people might be able to handle better like a template that displays actual content that they can position and move around.
Yeah, I think you might be onto something for that when I think about some of our editors from some of our clients. But on the other hand, they already have a theme, so they wouldn't fiddle with the full site editing, or wouldn't be allowed to do the full site editing. So it needs to be a kind of a person that has a little bit more abstraction anyway or capabilities for abstracting these technologies. So yeah, it's an interesting discussion and a balance to strike.
Right. Birgit, I want to say thank you so much for just venturing with me on these tangents that we keep talking about today. It's such a good conversations we're having.
Yeah. That's good questions.
Right?
Yeah.
It's fun. So experimental. Okay. So
I think we were through that, right?
We're through. Yeah. We talked about some of these newer blocks. Okay. And for everybody listening, there are probably about 30 bug fixes between 7.5 and 7.6 combined. That leads us into documentation.
Yeah, so in the documentation, there was a contributor guide, or the documentation for how to contribute to. Gutenberg has now more subpages, so it's a little bit more detailed for those who need it. Also, an updated Getting Started doc to use the WP-Env package for local development. That was all in 7.5. And for 7.6, there was a basic storybook listing for the WordPress icons. There's a new package in WordPress that is the WordPress icons package, and the first documentation about that is on Storybook available now. I think the team wanted to do a little bit more icons, but I think right now it's the basic part of it.
Yeah. So can we actually see the icons in Storybook? That's really cool.
Yeah. I will have the link in for that particular in the show notes. I don't know how many, but it's kind of 60 or so.
Okay.
For the blocks, but I think the team wanted to go actually really all out into 4,000 or something like that, but that's yet to come.
Yeah, and I want to also add that the icons for the new G2 UI user interface on Gutenberg have been, the Figma file is public and can also be checked out with a lot of the icons that are coming with G2. There needs to be some sort of proposal process, I believe, still integrated so that people can actually design in icons and propose them to be added to the library.
So G2, that's kind of an acronym. That's team.
Oh, thank you. Yes, please clarify, Birgit. Thank you.
Well, you clarify. I don't know what G2 is.
I think we've talked about in our episodes about this kind of new UI, like this new design of Gutenberg coming. It involves a lot more high contrast, very black and white. It gets rid of some of the borders around the blocks and the UI elements that seem to cause more visual cognitive load for people. And it really cleans up things. There is a PR in place. I believe it might have been merged or it will be merged very soon. And so you're going to see Gutenberg, the design of it kind of changing a bit to really be a little more minimal, simplified, a little easier to understand and interact with without so much visual distractions.
Yeah, so that's pretty much the learned lessons from 2 years of block editor.
Yeah.
Kind of reimagined.
There's been some really great design, just thinking throughout that.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. I think there was a link to the Gutenberg.run with the PR, one of our previous show notes, I think. I'll dig that up and add it to this episode's show note as well, so people can check it out.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I know the accessibility team is going to be looking at that as well, if they haven't already.
Yeah, definitely have to. Yeah, and then the other part of the documentation, there were also variations for the block registration or the documentation for the block variations that you can put into your register block type code, and how that works. That's now documented as well. So that concludes the various section for both releases. Had 18 items that you can check out on the various on the 2 release notes. One from Ella, the other one from Riyad, I think, or was it Jorge? George. We'll link it in the show notes. And that brings us to the section of what's in active development or what's discussed.
Yeah, so one of the current active developments is Dave Smith has written a rather lengthy tutorial on how to create your own custom block editor instances. And he did this on his own repo to really experiment, and has been asked to kind of bring this over to the Gutenberg repo. It's really well written and a lot of information there. So we will include that pull request in the show notes, but check it out if you're looking to create your own block editor instance.
Yeah, and also Anders Noren has prepared a proposal how to be able to target blocks within the Global Styles initiatives that's headed by Tammy and John Q, I think, for the overall WordPress project. And he definitely needs some comments there and how theme developers and plugin developers would do this.
Yeah, that's how we target individual blocks with global styles. So that's good. Another one is the block patterns. We've kind of spent a lot of time, other designers, Enrique Sanchez I'm referring to, have been working on the UI for incorporating block patterns into the block inserter, and kind of like having a one area where you add either patterns or you add blocks into your page or post. And while that's been going in a great direction, we kind of have now shifted to a smaller MVP, like a minimum viable product, right, of this interaction, because our desire is to get these block patterns into Gutenberg as soon as possible. And so what we're going to do is just kind of create a sidebar, like almost like if your plugin was to add a sidebar in Gutenberg. That's kind of where it's going to go right now, just to get things in there so people can start interacting with patterns and we could start getting some feedback. But in the whole process and scheme of things, we're going to work it into the block library or the inserter.
Yeah, I'm going to check that out. I'm really interested in that. And I think we need to rework on a glossary for blocks, because I think there are a few terms and
I'm nodding my head.
Kind of exchangeable, but kind of target the same thing, but are actually different, like block pattern and layouts and page layouts and all this. I found this when I was preparing for the talk.
Yeah.
How about
we put all that in your hands, Birgit?
Right. I was just thinking that this documentation gig is going to be a never-ending story, because the documentation team now needs to catch up on 5.4, but then there are the new icons coming for G2. Everything's going to change again. So it's going to be really interesting for this year.
It's going to be a fun year. Yeah, words and terminology are like the biggest challenge right now.
Well, but it's something to think about. And dear listeners, thank you for staying with us till the end here. We are at the end of our show. And as always, the show notes will be published on the gutenbergtimes.com/podcast. And if you have questions or suggestions or news, please send them to changelog@gutenbergtimes.com. That's changelog@gutenbergtimes.com. And if you like our show, please add a review to iTunes. Even if you don't like it, a review will help us to bubble up in all the searches. And if you don't know how to do this, you can go to gutenbergtimes.com/iTunes to see some instructions and screenshots on how to get a review into the Apple Store for our podcast. So that's it. Thanks for listening. Goodbye until the next time.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for listening again.
Thank you, Mark. Bye-bye.